Hello, this is Jerry Morton. Welcome to my Finding My Way podcast. This is podcast number 40, titled Rifle Qualification. Podcasts 34 through 61 are stories from the year of Army training I experienced. The training started in August 1966 and ended in June 1967. The stories are published in the book Reluctant Lieutenant, From Basic to OCS in the 60s, which was published by Texas A&M University Press as a military history. Rifle Qualification is an account of Jerry's insecurities in preparation for the rifle qualification test near the end of basic training in the fall of 1966, and the results of his performance. Rifle Qualification. Rumors were rampant. The cadre who scored our hits were really hard-nosed. Most of them were specialist 4th class, soldiers in the pay grade E4, which is one rank below a buck sergeant. Those guys have been around a while. One story had it that someone had attempted to bribe them. The attempt had failed, or so said the rumor, with major repercussions falling on the culprits. When you climbed into the deep foxhole facing the firing line, the scorers did not talk to you. They did not care how you did. The fact that you might have to repeat basic training if you should not hit enough of your targets was of zero concern to them. You shot, they scored. Anxiety was high for all of us. Anyone who scored expert would get a 3-day pass the next weekend. Since I could not even get a tight shot group, I did not waste my time on such details. My goal was to achieve the minimum score. I needed to get out of basic training. It would be a waste of my time to have to repeat it. We would be issued only the number of rounds necessary to hit all the targets. I think that number was 75. Since there was no possibility of my being that good a shot, I did not consume any memory space for it. The same was true for the number of hits you needed to qualify for expert marksman. They said that maybe no one in the company would hit enough targets to achieve that honor. Other companies had failed to produce an expert marksman. The rumor mill told us. There were some really good shots in our company. I had seen their shot groups. At 100 yards, they not only hit the bullseye, but their shot groups were so tight that a quarter could cover all 3 holes made by the bullets they shot. Several of them had been shooting all their lives. They came into basic training knowing how to field strip a rifle. I was no competition to anyone. I just hoped I passed. Several days before the qualification test, our time on the rifle range increased. Sometimes we shot both in the morning and in the afternoon. The sergeants running the range hovered over us like bees, constantly giving us tips. Breathe halfway in and hold it. Squeeze the trigger slowly as you hold your breath. Don't pull the rifle with your trigger finger when you put pressure on the trigger. You don't want to guess when it will fire. Stay steady and squeeze slowly. Let the rifle tell you when it's going to fire. Don't you tell it. The advice was nonstop, but it did not seem to help. I almost always had one round hit outside of my shot group. Worse yet, my shots rarely hit the bullseye. When they did, I was very pleased. Other guys would go around showing off their paper targets when the range people chose to give them to us. No doubt about it, we had some good shots in our company. One of the guys said he had heard that each target would only be shown to us for a couple of seconds. If you did not hit it with your first round, you probably would not get a second chance. Some guys left the range with 10 or 20 rounds unexpended. Others fired off all of their rounds before they had seen half of their targets. There were so many ways to mess up that the imagination boggled trying to deal with it all. The night before the test, I had difficulty sleeping. This rarely happened. As soon as the lights were out, I would quickly fall asleep. My body was tired, my mind was tired, and I had been under pressure to perform some training efforts throughout the day. Getting to sleep was a simple process. I was surprised to wake up and discover it was morning. The nights seemed so short. I had gotten all of the sleep allotted to me by the Army almost every night. The night before the rifle qualification test was different. I was consumed with fear. If I failed to get the minimum qualifying score, it would be bad. I would not get to see Anna during the break between basic training and advanced infantry training, AIT. There would be no break for me. I would be immediately reassigned to a new basic training company and have to start all over again. It had already been announced that most of us would get 2 weeks off before having to report for AIT. Only those going to schools that started right after we graduated would miss out on the 2-week leave. I had already written Anna about it. We were looking forward to being together. I would fly down to Lexington, Kentucky. She would pick me up at the airport. We would then go straight to the apartment in Danville. Naturally, she would still have to teach at the high school, but we would be together in the evenings and throughout the weekends. It would be wonderful. They had told us that we could invite our families to the graduation ceremony. In fact, they had encouraged us to do so. Several of the guys were having their parents, grandparents, wives, and friends come to see it. Some of them were traveling a long way and had already made their travel arrangements. Anna and I decided that it would be best for her to stay in Kentucky. We would be together the next day. Besides, attending the basic training graduation ceremony seemed a little juvenile. I did not comment to anyone about the silliness of attending an event of such little importance as this. It was good that I kept my mouth shut on the matter, as it became apparent that many of the guys, particularly those who had not gone to college, thought it was important. I would not have wanted to have inadvertently offended someone. Of course, this all was based on the assumption that I would qualify with the M14 in the morning. 2-mile run, and the day is started. It is hard to eat anything right after the 2-mile run. This morning the tension made it even harder. I could only eat a slice of toast. Coffee and juice were my main stomach fillers. We got our weapons from the arms room. The tension was mounting. No one talked much. The quiet made it worse. Quickly, we loaded onto the 2.5 trucks. It was cold. The tarp over the top of the cargo area kept the wind off all but the last 2 or 3 guys seated on each side of the truck bed. "Move! Move! Form up by platoons!" shouted Sergeant Sato. The sergeants were strictly business. As soon as we formed up, we were ordered to open the breeches of our weapons. Sergeant Boone and Sergeant Sarconi whizzed by, making sure there was no ammo in the chambers. This seemed like a foolish check. We had not been issued any ammo yet. We did not even have our ammo magazines. The out-of-place inspection added to the tension. As Boone walked by me, he looked me squarely in the eyes. He must have known I was tense. God, I hope I would not mess up. One of the range sergeants took over the platoon. This sergeant was new to me. I had not seen him on the firing range or anywhere else. The Army seemed to have an endless supply of sergeants. He marched us to a high, artificially made ridge that seemed to go on forever. It had no trees or bushes on it. It looked like a levee wall on the Mississippi River. We were given 4 loaded magazines and instructed not to lock one in our weapons until we were instructed to do so at our firing points on top of the hill. We would be individually told which firing point to go to and when. Once so instructed, there would be someone at the top of the hill to direct us into the foxhole from which we would fire. We were to keep our weapons pointed downrange at all times. The instructor in the range tower would tell us when to lock and load. If we should lock and load before we were told to do so, we would be removed from the firing line and disciplined accordingly. I could see little trails that had been worn into the hillside at widely spaced intervals. There was little question of getting lost. Sometimes you could see a helmeted head moving around up there. Rifle fire came from the left and the right of the hill. The shooting had begun. When my turn came to go up the hill, my heart skipped a beat. This was it. I briskly climbed up the steep bank. The Spec 4 sat on a folding chair. He was leaning back on 2 of its legs and rocking it. He pointed to the foxhole beneath. I understood his direction and jumped inside. It was a little less than chest high, just right for resting my elbows on the ground at the top to make a stable platform for my weapon. Looking downrange, I was stunned. There were no lines of trenches for the bullseye targets to be hauled up from. It was just a tangle of underbrush and trees as far as the eye could see. Panic hit me. What was this? I don't understand. Nobody told me what to expect. I blurted out to the Spec 4. Green silhouettes will pop up. You have to spot them and shoot them down. When you hit one, it will fall backwards. Then another one will pop up somewhere else out there. He answered. Assume the firing position, he ordered. I wrapped the rifle sling around my right arm and leaned into the firing position, using my free hand to place my 4 loaded magazines on the edge of the foxhole within easy reach. Fires! Lock and load 1 18-round magazine, came the order from the tower. I did as I was instructed. Peering through the sights and waiting for something to happen, I was totally focused. Get ready, said the Spec 4. 50 yards in front of me, the leaves on a bush shook. I blinked and saw the green silhouette of a man's upper torso, such as we had shot at a few times on the regular rifle range. I squeezed the trigger. Crack! Ting! An empty shell casing flew out and hit the dirt. The silhouette immediately disappeared into the ground. 75 yards out and off to the left, the corner of my eye picked up a brief movement, swinging my rifle to point at it, and quickly aiming low, I saw part of the green silhouette. Crack! Ting! It too went down. Then nothing. I could not see anything. My eyes darted around as fast as I could move them. To the right, nothing. To the left, nothing. Then I spotted it. The silhouette was downrange about 100 yards in the center of my lane. It was just standing there between two trees. I needed to squeeze off a shot quickly before it retracted on its own. Aim low, aim low, I kept telling myself. If I hit the ground in front of it, flying debris would take it out. Crack-ting! A puff of dust flew up just in front of the target, and it went down. Crack-ting, 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 crack-ting. Target after target swam into view and went down. Then I heard a different sound. Ding! About 25 yards in front of me and a couple to the left, a target sprang up. I did not even have to aim to blow this one down. Then nothing again. I could see nothing. "What's happening?" I shouted to the Spec 4. "Is it up?" "Hell, yes," he replied, his voice ringing with excitement. "It's right in front of you." Nothing. I could not see it. I couldn't see it. God, I knew it was there, and I just could not see it. I sensed new movement and suddenly saw it go down. It had jiggled a bush about 50 yards out to the left center of my lane. Damn, 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 I could have gotten it if I had seen sooner. The next one popped up way downrange to my far left. Crack-ting! It was mine. I was into it. It was fun. I just aim low, and it will go down every time. Another pause. I knew another target was up, but I could not see it. Movement. It was going down. I squeezed out around. Maybe I hit it. It was hard to tell. More targets. Fire. Replace the magazine and keep on firing. Damn. Another one was up, and I could not see it. So far, I had hit everything I had seen. "You're on a roll," the Spec said, right after I hit one way downrange. He spontaneously called out, "Nice shot!" Pause. One was up, and I did not see it. My eyes darted left and right, trying to find it. It's up, it's in front of you," blurted the specialist. "Stop, can't you see it?" Heck, I thought, this guy's pulling for me. I was starting to like this. I saw it about 25 yards out and to the right. Crack-ting! I missed it. What to do? It was still up. I fired again. I had some extra rounds from targets I had never fired at. It went down. Crack-ting! Crack-ting! A couple more targets go down, and then there are no more. "That's it," announced the Spec 4. "That's the last one. Nice shooting. Really nice shooting." He was smiling. I was pleased. I had hit every target I saw. There were some that I could not find, but it did not matter. I hit a lot of them. I was sure that I had qualified. Damn, if they had told us during the target camouflage identification training how it would help on the live fire qualification range, I would have paid more attention. Oh well. There were only a few targets that I had not seen. There was no question in my mind that I had qualified. I was going to get out of basic. "You qualified, expert," the Spec 4 said as he handed me my official scorecard. "Good shooting." He shook my hand. "I get a weekend pass. I had 68 hits. This is unbelievable. This is wonderful. As soon as we get dismissed this evening, I will get up in the telephone line. Anna and I can meet somewhere. We can have next weekend together. Oh, I am so thankful," I thought. This is just plain outstanding. After going through the no brass, no ammo inspection with Sergeant Boone, as he looked into each of our open rifle breeches, we turned in our scorecards. Boone and Nichols looked at them as we turned them in. I was in Nichols' line. He just took the card. I walked away. Nothing was said. Anna was so pleased. It was totally unexpected. We figured that the closest airport at which we could meet was Philadelphia. She made the airline ticket arrangements and hotel reservations. Her plane got in before mine early Saturday morning. We would meet at the airline's ticket counter. She would be there waiting for me. Oh, how wonderful. This was just fantastic. The Army never gave us any time to think. Thinking was the Army's job. Doing was the soldier's job, the sergeants told us. Nonetheless, I puzzled over the fact that the Army had trained us to shoot at stationary targets. We mostly shot at traditional bullseye targets that were posted at known distances. The few silhouettes that we had fired at were also stationary targets. None of our targets had ever been camouflaged. Why had the Army trained us to shoot under one set of conditions and then tested us in a totally different setting? It did not make a whole lot of sense to me. Then again, what did I know? I was just a citizen soldier, not a professional. Besides, I was pretty happy. I was going to spend the weekend with my lover. The rumor was that 4 guys in our company had qualified as expert riflemen. That was it. I was truly lucky. This was so good. The plane arrived on time. I was in my Army dress greens. This was the first time I had officially worn them. I had gotten the Army shoulder patch sewn on and learned how to attach the brass. The U.S. and crossed rifle buttons went on the lapels. The dress uniform was a lot like a 2-piece single-breasted business suit. You had a thin black tie and a tan-colored shirt. The jacket and pants were of suit quality. From the feel of them, they were solid wool. There was no doubt about it. The fabric was of a higher quality than any suit I had ever owned. Then again, I had only owned one suit. I had gotten it for my high school graduation and had worn it so often since then that the seats of the pants had gotten shiny. A sport coat and polyester slacks met my needs in graduate school. Because of the coming graduation ceremony, Sergeant Boone had seen to it that we all sent our dress greens to the cleaners for a nice pressing. I felt sharp in those greens. Before we left the post, we were instructed not to hitchhike while in uniform. The fact that I was flying failed to deter them from issuing me that set of instructions. To tell the truth, I felt a little proud to be in such good physical condition. Except for my periodic coughing, tender palms, and pus-filled big toenail. I figured I was close to being as fit as I had ever been. I was definitely stronger than when I had worked on the dredge boats. I remembered the times Anna flew to the Texas coast to be with me. They were good times, but not as good as this time. We were not married then, so she had stayed with my folks. It was awkward, but far better than being apart, even if it was just for the summer breaks during our college years. My fingertips had been rough back then, covered with cuts and bruises that made them scratchy on our skin. They were rough enough now, but not nearly as bad as in those days. I hoped they would not hurt her. The airport was bigger than I had expected. It was a long walk from the gate to the ticket counter. Most of the people rushing around were in the military. I saw Army uniforms everywhere. With this many people in such rapid movement, it might be hard to find Anna. Wouldn't that be the pits, I thought. Then I saw her. There she was. Oh, she took my breath away. She had not seen me, although she was looking in my general direction. I quickened my pace. She still did not see me. I was so happy. Just as I came within touching distance of her, she looked off in a different direction. "Anna!" I called out, reaching out to hold her. Turning toward the sound of my voice, she looked up in surprise. As I wrapped my arms around her, she began crying. "What have they done to you?" she sobbed. It was a deep, breath-shaking sob. I guess it was because she was not used to seeing me in uniform. That was why she had failed to recognize me from a distance, I reasoned. They've starved you." She managed to say between sobs, kisses, and hugs, You look like a POW from Germany, my poor baby. Well, I had lost a lot of weight since she had last seen me. That had been 5 or so weeks ago. I knew I had lost at least 40 pounds since then. In college, I had weighed about 140 pounds. 3 days after we graduated, we got married. In the 3 months that followed, I had soared to 180 pounds. Married life was a good life for us. I knew I weighed less now than I had in my undergraduate days, but I was in the best physical shape of my life. I was physically fit and thought I looked good. The uniforms had been loose-fitting when they issued them to us. With my weight reduction since then, they did kind of slip around on my frame with some added freedom. My appearance clearly distressed her. We spent most of that weekend in a downtown hotel room. Anna had booked us into an upscale hotel. It was just wonderful to be with her, even though she cried a good deal at the time. Once she started pointing them out to me, I realized that I had a lot of deep bruises and bumps on different parts of my body. I had not thought much about them. Training did that. My toe, raw palms, and coughing were the only things that really bothered me. They interfered with my performance. If you are hurt, it tends to increase the likelihood of getting more seriously hurt. We had already had guys break bones and the like. It put them back in their training schedule. They would have to do some, if not all, of basic training over, according to the rumor mill. Heaven knew I did not want to be in the Army any longer than necessary. Late Saturday afternoon, Anna and I went out for a walk in downtown Philadelphia. The lady selling tickets to view the Liberty Bell said that we did not have to pay since I was in uniform. I think she was just being generous to two people so obviously in love. Everyone we met was extraordinarily kind to us. I felt a little awkward being among civilians in uniform. They did not seem to mind. I was proud to be wearing my expert rifleman's badge. The Army had even issued all of us a ribbon for being in the military at that time. They called it the National Defense Service Medal. I always wondered how those old generals got all their medals. Apparently, they needed only to live long enough to have a lot of them issued. Once you understood what the medals, patches, and other attachments on the soldier's uniform meant, you could read a guy's military history in a glance. The stuff had never meant much to me in my civilian days. Soldiers did not wear their uniforms to impress civilians. They wear it with pride to let other soldiers know what they have been through and accomplished. Anna and I had to part all too soon. Her plane left first. My heart hurt. She cried. She struggled not to, but the tears welled up from somewhere deep inside and slowly rolled down her cheeks, one after another. It was hard. We knew we would have that week or two break when I finished basic training. We would be together again in a couple of weeks. We had that to hold on to.